around, have everybody identify themselves and their appointing authority. So let's go ahead and take care of that. And in the process, we will also be identifying our quorum for the evening. Again, Rick Fernandez, member at large, in your chair. Stephen?
Hey, everyone, Stephen Hollenkamp, appointed by the city of Plant City.
Pat Sink, appointed by council member Alan Glendinning.
Chris Gonzalez, member at large.
Stephen Gaynor, member at large.
Clifford Reese, member at large. Isabella, member at large.
Ivia Adams, member at large.
Stephen Jones, member at large.
Dustin Johnson, member at large.
Susie Watts, appointed by Commissioner Miller.
Aya Yassine, appointed by the City Affairs Council.
All right, so those individuals just identified are in the room, and I will declare a quorum present based on that. Sound off, appreciate it. And now online, who do we have?
Online committee members, if you could introduce yourself. I see Artie Fryer. Artie, are you here?
Yes, Artie Fryer. I'm representing the Transportation Disadvantaged Coordinating Board.
Thank you, Artie. Next, I see Jason Grundy.
Yes, I am representing Commissioner Myers. Thank you.
I see Will Atkins.
Will Atkins from the Planning Commission. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, well, thank you all. Appreciate y'all being here, both in the room and online. Thank you. Okay, I guess that takes us to public comment. Is there anyone in the room for public comment? See anybody jumping up, so we'll move on from that. How about online? Any hands up?
Anyone online for public comment? I see no one online for public comment.
All right, takes us to chair's report. All right, we had 3 action items at our last meeting that were also litigated 1 week later by the TPO board. So let me report on that. We recommended to the TPO board that they approve the Beers Avenue multimodal safety study. The TPO board approved that study. The CAC recommended that the TPO board support the annual joint certification of the TPO, which was also supported by the TPO board. The CAC recommended that the TPO board approve the amendment to the tip for lighting on East Adamo Drive, and the TPO board approved that tip amendment. So we were 3 for 3 last month. Member updates. New members who can now vote. Stephen Gainier.
Correct.
Hi, Stephen. Welcome.
Thank you.
Did I pronounce that right?
Yes.
Could I get you to tilt your nameplate this direction so I can read it? Because I can assure you I will have a senior moment. All right, thank you, Stephen. Just say Stephen. And that's right, Stephen, I hit a lot of points, don't I? Kelly Loya?
She was not able to join us tonight.
Okay, but she's legit now. She's passed muster with the board. And we have incoming members, Abraham Wilcox, who I guess is up for consideration this month.
Yes,
All right, and who's his appointing authority?
at large.
At large. He's not here or online?
He is not here or online.
Okey-dokey. All right. Approval of the minutes. We have 2 packets tonight. The first was for our regular meeting on April 1st. Let's take that one in order. Hopefully you've had an opportunity to review. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of April 1, 2026?
Motion.
I see a motion from Susie Watts and a second for Aya Yassine. Any discussion on the minutes? See nothing in the room. Any discussion online on the minutes for April 1?
Anyone online?
No?
Nope.
Okay, by acclamation then, the minutes, April 1, 2026. All in favor of approval, please signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Please note that as unanimous approval. Second packet is for the April 15 hybrid workshop that a few of us attended. Again, hopefully you had an opportunity to peruse that. Do I have a motion to approve that packet of minutes?
Motion.
Suzie Watts offers the original motion. Is there a second? And Ivy Adams offers a second. All right, any discussion on the minutes? Nothing in the room, anything online? Hands up.
Anyone online? Nothing online?
Okay, by acclamation then, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign. All right, please signify a unanimous approval. And for the record, Jamie Jones has joined us, so please note that as a in-person attendee. Okay, takes us to our action items. Elizabeth Watkins, the FY 28 to 32 TPO priority list.
Good evening, CAC, Elizabeth Watkins, TPO staff. Thank you to those of you who were able to attend the workshop on April 15th. You asked a lot of great questions, and now it's coming to you for action. So what exactly is this priority list? It's sort of hinted at in the name. It is a list of projects that have been prioritized from 1 to 40 for different federal funding sources. There's a little bit of an asterisk to that. This money isn't available next year. It's actually programmed out 5 years out, fiscal year 32. This is just due to how the programming process works. For many reasons, I won't get into the wonkiness of that, but it's that way for a reason. The second thing that it does is one of many methods to communicate a need to FDOT on their own facilities. This is synced up with the FDOT work program process, so it's a really nice place to kind of have that documented as well. And then finally, it can help bolster different discretionary grant applications as a way to demonstrate community support for various projects. Developing this list takes an all hands on deck approach. An important stakeholder are our local agencies, so the municipalities as well as HART. All project submissions come from them. And that's really important because they're the ones who are going to build it, operate it, and maintain it. The TPO plays an important role in setting that long-term vision and priorities, and we use data to evaluate the different projects to monitor investment performance. And then finally, our partner at District 7, they're the ones actually putting the dollars on the projects for programming it. And that's a really big responsibility. So it also comes with the added responsibility of being responsible for the oversight of any federally funded projects to the U.S. Department of Transportation. I wanted to make sure it was very clear that not all needs or transportation projects are going to be on this list. The TPO priority list is one piece of the puzzle, but our partners at the municipalities as well as DOT, they have capital improvement programs, 3 of which have viewers online, so you can see all the different capital projects that are being advanced in the region. But this priority list is really focused on those TPO funding sources, which is about $20 to $25 million per year. So a couple things have changed since previous years. The first thing is that you're seeing this earlier. So previously we would have brought you the TIP as one item in June and the priority list as another. But this year we're going to separate them a little bit, bring it to you in May, and then we'll talk in more detail in June about the Transportation Improvement Program. And this is a small change, not even a change, but we try to be really intentional about how we call this. So you'll notice that the dates on the priority list and the TIP, they look similar formats, but different. So the priority list is called 20 to 32, and that's because it really informs the TIP you'll see next year, which will be called the 28 to 32 Transportation Improvement Program. The second major thing that's changed is we've updated the format and we've added more information as an attempt to have additional transparency so that anybody who picked up this document could have a better sense of where this project is in its development and what the TPO's recommendation is on it. So just to walk you through this at a greater detail, we have a little bit more than we previously did on that project description. What is it? What is it trying to achieve? We have called out in a tabular way all the project phases to try to communicate what's needed, when is it anticipated, and how much will that phase cost. A new factor is project readiness. These are three kind of more harder things to capture in a number or in a date. So one is, can we have this detailed scope of work? What exactly is this project proposing? A second really important component is, do we have a detailed engineer's estimate? So not a back of a napkin, high level planning estimate. Do we have the specs to be able to give us that really detailed estimate? And then finally, kind of the intangibles about coordination. Nothing can be done in a vacuum, and often there is collaboration and coordination that needs to happen if a project is going to advance. And then finally, to your left, we try to break this out even more clearly, where it has the funding amount that's sought, if any, which phase is seeking funding, and then what that recommendation is. So now I'll get into the projects on this list. So there are there are 40 projects on this list. 31 of them are purely seeking community TPO board support behind them. 9 of the projects are also seeking that support, but also actively applying for those TPO suballocated funds for programming in fiscal year 32. So I'll talk at a high level of those 31 projects that are on that list, mostly for TPO board and community support. First of which is the TCO streetcar extension. We know this is an important regional project. It's currently in the PD&E phase. So the city submitted an application for it to be on the list, but it's not actively seeking money in fiscal year 32. Same thing for the Tampa arterial VRT, the VRT from downtown to the USF area. HART is reimagining that and is currently about to kick off a new PD&E. The I-275 widening from Hillsborough to Pierce. This was a project that was added, or the name was changed in the list of priority projects. I know it was of great interest to this committee, so I did a little bit of research just to get this out since we spoke earlier, Chair. This project, I-275, the widening from Hillsborough to Pierce, in 2021, Commissioner Kemp made a motion to change that on the list of priority projects, which was formerly called Table 2, to change the description to just be construct noise walls. That description was carried forward in 2022 and 2023. At the 2024 public hearing, Commissioner Lostal made a successful motion to change that project description to be capacity project. It remained that way in 2025, as well as the draft list that is before you today. The 2 other projects that aren't seeking funding but are on here for that support, Van Dyke widening in the northwest part of the county. This is an important project to the county to widen it, as well as add a trail facility, and then HART's heavy maintenance facility, which means a whole overhaul and is partially funded at this point. But the projects I'm going to spend most of the time talking about are those 9 that have applications for funding, as those are things that the TPO could really affect change on most drastically, because again, it's for those TPO sub-allocated funds. So I'm happy to report that we have projects across all of our categories. So our smart cities, our technology, what things can we do to improve capacity without widening? State of good repair projects, keeping the fleet in a good state, as well as maintaining our bridges. Vision Zero, having safety and bike walk projects in Plant City. Real choices when not driving, which are mostly our trail projects, and then major projects for economic growth. Any interchange improvements, fixed skyway transit. Those are the types of projects that would fall in that category. So the TPO, the top priority is smart cities. So the application we received from Hillsborough County is to have different smart traffic network implements, whether that be new traffic signals, advanced traffic controllers, different hardware upgrades on key corridors that are congested in the eastern part of the county, which include Bloomingdale, Boyette, Fishhawk, Lumsden, Parson, and then one other corridor, Racetrack Road near Town and Country. This is a continuation of an existing program that the county has, as they're really looking at what technology improvements can they do to optimize the system? So this would be a continuation of that effort. Next are the good repair and resilience applications that we received, 2 from Hart. The first being the bus stop capital improvements. Hart has over 2,500 stops across the county, and the TPO has long supported Hart in installing shelters, ADA improvements, bus stop amenities, and the recommended funding will be about $2 million for that. The next application that Hart submitted was for their vehicle replacements and midlife overhauls. Over half of Hart's buses, so about 75 of their 130, are beyond their useful life. Their mechanics are doing a phenomenal job of squeezing every last mile out of the buses. They have a couple buses in there that are close to 800,000 miles, so they're really, really doing the best they can with the resources available. You may have heard that, well, you did hear, because I brought you a tip amendment a few months ago about the grant they won for $30 million to replace those last remaining diesel buses. So that was going to replace about 30 buses, so there's still more to go. So we're making the recommendation to continue to support Hart at the tune of $5 million to continue to do those midlife overhauls and replace the vehicles on schedule. The last good repair and resilience projects are 2 bridges in the city of Tampa near downtown. Both the Moraine Street Bridge and the Cass Street Bridge rehabilitations are envisioning structural upgrades to their structural and electrical systems. Moraine would also add sidewalks on both sides, and as you know, Cass Street would continue to have that hardened bicycle facility as part of the green spine. The Moraine total project cost is $21 million, while Cass was $15 million. So staff is recommending that the Cass Street rehabilitation be considered for funding so that additional projects could be funded down the list, because if it were Moraine, it would run out of money and nothing else could be funded. And the city also agreed that it would be a lot to take on at one time if they were to rehabilitate both bridges. The next category is Vision Zero. So we received 1 application from our partners in Plant City. They've had a long-standing project of improving Collins Street, which would connect downtown Plant City to Midtown and other local neighborhoods and commercial events. This project will enhance safety through dedicated bike lanes, expanded sidewalks, and traffic calming measures. They're requesting to start preliminary engineering for the also Brook to Alexander Street phase. We received 1 application for a real choice of not driving from the county, and this is to construct the Tampa Bypass Canal from Morris Bridge Road to Brisby Downs. They're requesting about $2.5 million to finalize that construction, and that project is going to be starting preliminary engineering next year. And then to round them out, we had 2 submissions for major projects. One from the county, which was the Gibsonton Drive widening. They were actually requesting state funds called CIGP, the Community County Improvement Grant Program. And ultimately, what they're trying to do is add 2 lanes, curb and gutter, and sidewalks. And because funding is for PE, the request is lower, so it's $750,000 that we believe could be funded. And then finally was the project from the city of Tampa to reconfigure Ashley Drive. You may recall that the city won a grant to get this project going. So on this image, it'll be hard to see, but phase 1 is funded, but stages 2 and 3 are not. So they submitted a request for $10 million for preliminary engineering construction. And at this point in the list, the funds have run out, so we don't believe that that could be funded. So just to recap the funding recommendation summary, most of the applications that we received, we believe could be funded given the amount of funding available. There's investments across all modes, whether it be highways, transit, or safety, sidewalks. There's a nice geographic distribution across the county. And then continuing to maintain that balance of funding things for construction, so we want to get them built, but then also having a pipeline of funding design phases so that we'll continue to have things come online. So the recommended action before you today is to recommend the TPO board acceptance of this priority list, but I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, Elizabeth, thank you. Before I release to the general group, let me just make this statement, preview, if you will. I do intend to make a motion to strike item number 36. That's the widening from Hillsborough to Beers. So just be ready when the time comes. It'll probably be at the very end of all the Q&A, but I wanted to put that out there and let you know it's coming. All right, with that said, to my left, any questions? Stephen?
Yeah, thank you. That was great. I really like the updates, to, the it's laid out. On the Plant City one, is that a public document, the image of that plan?
Yes,
Yeah, is there, I'm trying to find it. I can't find it online.
I would be happy to send that to you. Yes, absolutely. I'll send that to Sarah. That came from a 2013 study that actually the Planning Commission did on behalf of Plant City to do some visioning for that, so we can certainly send it along.
Okay, that's the same one from 2013? Okay. Thank you.
To my left, Matthew.
Thank you for your presentation. I appreciate it. Just a point of clarification. So there is no application for streetcar extensions for funds in this round. Is that correct?
For TPO funds, correct.
Is that abnormal? Like, was it like, it's such a big project that some people have been asking for. I just find it interesting that there's no request for funding.
It's probably strategic on their part. I think they want to get that streetcar extension built sooner than 5 years. So I think they're looking at other financing mechanisms for it.
Thank you for the clarification. That makes sense. Thank you.
Well, if I might, let me just make sure if I may be wrong about this. My recollection is that there was funding earmarked for that project and it was pulled.
That's
Right.
correct.
Right? We had it, we lost it. And then suddenly we found money to expand the interstate on I-4. But nonetheless, that is what it is. But yeah, we did have money for it. Any other questions here to my left? No hands up. To my right. You all are active over here. Chris, start with you.
So just a point of clarification, we're not gonna really talk about TIP till later on, right? We're gonna have that workshop and then we'll have that discussion. So I'm gonna cut back on a bunch of stuff that I was gonna ask. One thing that I know that a lot of these projects borrow is called the DDR fund. And under Florida statute, DDR fund can be used for anything, buying a HART bus to like streetcar and stuff. So I was wondering why, in the overall tip, even priority, why we're only funding up to 10% of that? And federal statute allows it to 20%. And I recall having a lot of conversations about, well, there's not enough money, but if these funds are almost like a slush fund, if you will, that can be moved from one end to the other. You know, why can't we shift that around, and why we're not investing more in the transit and other options other than cars?
Good question, and I'll get it started, but we need some help from a DOT counterpart. So the DDR, that's district dedicated revenue. Those are state funds, and this priority list really focuses on the sub-allocated of federal funds that the TPO gets. So I would leave it at that, those funds are largely the discretion of District 7.
But they could use to supplement federal funded projects, right? Okay, so I just want to get that point of clarification. And then the expansion north of downtown Chiefs Ferris Avenue. And I know we might have touched upon this, but has that gone on record and said like they're definitely going to do express toll lanes on that? Is that the purpose of this work?
I don't think that they've said that. The thing that I can speak to definitively is that their plans are to finish design in like 2035. So I don't think those decisions have been made yet, but.
Dan Ziegler, FDOT, Rose Scott, Hillsborough to Barris. Yes, no, as of right now, there's no definitive answer. I think we've talked about express lanes repeatedly, and we don't even have the money to move forward and advance that project. So we don't know what that looks like or when that's coming, and so we would need to be further along in the project to make that determination.
You mentioned something about Boston's decision about this project in particular that we're talking about. Whenever you recategorize a project, it does typically require a reevaluation of the ROP. Has that been discussed internally with like legal and staff?
So the priority list is distinct and different than the NEPA ROD, the record of decision. I am not a NEPA expert to speak to that. I can just say that what Commissioner Wostel's motion did in 2024 was just indicate that the TPO board at that time and continues today is open to supporting a capacity project at those limits.
Thank you.
Stephen?
I just have, thank you, Chair. I just have a couple of general questions. I didn't hear anything about cost overruns. What is the general attitude towards cost overruns? And is there any cushion built into the planning process so that cost overruns don't become a problem?
That's such a great point, especially at a time where we're seeing just like escalating project cost. So typically there is a bit of a cushion that's built into that. So yes, that is accounted for, particularly because these are recommendations 5 years out. So we know that the project cost will be higher. So that is taken into account.
There's indirect and overhead funds for all these projects.
Okay, so if you run out of money for a particular project, does it have to be reapproved or is it just added in? Is the money just added in to finish the project?
So that's really on the programming side. So I'm just going to speak to my understanding of it. I know for like locally administered projects, that the city or the county would have to absorb those costs.
Suzanne Ziegler, John again, just to speak to the programming and engineering side of it. So the applications in which Elizabeth is discussing that get approved and programmed, there's actually, in our cost estimate, we have inflation factors that are assigned based on the year in which construction would be. So whatever the present day cost is for that fiscal year that it would be programmed, there's an inflation factor. And as we move forward, that's taken into account. Now, there has been times when we've had projects where we've had to call the TPO and say, hey, for whatever reason, this has jumped $3 million. And, we work that out with Johnny and the team and, maybe it's that we are able to, move something around and cover half and they're agreeable to, making the project happen. But that also, when I come and give the presentation on the tentative work program, the first thing that we look to fund is to actually make sure those projects that are already programmed have enough money.
Based on the expected inflation rate over the next
Yes,
year
sir.
period.
So we take that into account before we start funding projects. So.
Still over on my right side. Dustin, anything?
No, I didn't have my hand raised.
Susie?
Yes, I was interested about the smart network for a lot of the East County streets that I drive on daily. With that, it refers to the traffic lights. Does that include the pedestrian lights for crossing? I was just curious.
I believe so. That's part of the proposal. All those things interact together. So it'd be upgrading those signals and the technologies. The aim of it is really for congestion relief, but I'm sure that they will also.
There's a pedestrian safety aspect. Thank you.
No?
But no comment, thank you.
No comment. How about online?
Anyone online, committee members? I see no committee members online with any question or comment at this time.
Okey-doke, back to Stephen.
Yeah, Elizabeth, something I don't understand. We're talking about the priority list. Last year, this priority list had 90 something projects. And every year, those projects that weren't done would stay on. And now there's 40. Was there some process of just do the agency still want these? And we just cleaned out all the ones that the agency said no on? Is that what happened?
That's exactly right. We really work with our partners to be strategic about where it makes sense for a project to be on this priority list. Are they seeking TPO funds or do they think they're going to go after a discretionary grant? There were many projects on there that were just continuing to be rolled over. So we checked in with our partners and said, hey, what's the status of this? Is this our priority? Or are we pursuing it locally, like on those CIPs, on those maps I showed? So yes, there was that coordination so that we could be very strategic and laser focused on what this priority list can do for certain projects.
So it's fair to say that, something that was on there for Plant City is no longer on there, that the city is not interested in that. The same would be true for all agencies. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else left side? Another Stephen.
Thank you. I appreciate that presentation. I was looking at the upgrading and maintenance of the buses and shelters. I've seen the shelters, and for the buses, is there information on, or have there been any decisions on a lot of new technology with buses, types of buses and design of buses and things like that? Or is that something that's going to be made in the future with these funds?
That's a great question. I know Heather Sobush from HART is online. So Heather, the question was about the technology of the buses, but I'll get it started. HART will be the first transit agency in the state of Florida to have a full compressed natural gas fleet. So I think that's a big technology upgrade. And part of that also includes like passenger amenities within the bus. But I don't know, Heather, if you could speak at all to any technology upgrades that you all are seeing in new HART buses that you procure.
Hi, Heather Sobush, HART. Let me think about this for a second. I mean, in terms of technology upgrades, I don't know that there's any fueling related technologies that we're seeing, but we are including on buses a better, what we call a CAD AVL system, which is a real-time system that can track the buses. So that's being included on new buses. We also do have some, we have buses with the technology to do transit signal priority. And so we already have that on a number of buses. And I believe new buses are also including that. And that's really all I can think of right at the moment.
Stephen, you good?
Yes.
Anything else here on my left? Back around to the right. Chris.
Good question. And so projects number 14, 16, and 38 don't have any scopes. So how does a project without a scope actually become a priority?
Great question. Okay. So, for example, project 14, the Beers Avenue multimodal safety study improvements. There isn't a scope because the TPO board is going to be, maybe they already did. They just approved that study. So that's why those things were grayed out, because we didn't know at the time of this development that we knew exactly what was going to be approved or recommended.
All right, so it's just more of like a timing seat thing. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay, still over here to my right. Nope. Any second guessing up online?
Anyone online?
Okay, Elizabeth, I have a couple of questions. As I previewed earlier, this isn't a motion. I just have a couple of questions first. On the project ranked number 36 on the summary of prioritized projects, that being the 275 Hillsborough Avenue, the Bears widening. Could you go to the actual priority list? I just want you to go through that. I'd like you to explain to me what each of the various boxes mean.
Sure.
This,
Do you want me to share my screen from here? I have it.
That would be great.
okay, this is again for the FPID number 431821-Marie. Are you there?
So Sarah has it up right now. So what this is showing is that this is priority number 36. The project name is widening of I-275 from Hillsborough Avenue to Pierce Avenue. The scope is to include a capacity project, so a widening of some sort, details to be determined with the design. The FPID is just the number that DOT uses to track all the projects. They're all the funding amount sought, phase seeking funding, tip funding recommendation, all are not applicable because there's no details on that quite yet. The PD&E was approved in 2020 and the local design acceptance, PCA, location, concept and design acceptance was issued then. A little bit of the design, I think, started in 2024, 2025, but the total estimate, I believe, for design is $20 million. Right of way is unfunded and construction is unfunded.
Okay, can you back up to the design just a moment? This really is just education for me. Now, if 20 million is what is budgeted for the design process, that hasn't been spent.
No, it's the estimated, and I may have loved it. I was looking at DOT's this cost feasible where they're showing. I'll have to get it off on, I'll have to clarify online about that, but DOT is expecting to do design sometime between 2035 and 2040.
Okay, so they have not done design yet.
I think it started, like the initial parts of design and preliminary engineering have started.
Okay, and I have been told that there's a position already having been taken by the DOT that this project is considered as being beyond the point of no return. Although virtually nothing has been done, very little has been spent. But is that still your understanding of the Department of Transportation's position?
I'll let DOT to speak to their position, but my understanding is that clause is when the LDCA is issued, and that is at the conclusion of the PD&E. So it's my understanding that that's the department's position, is once that is issued and the PD&E is wrapped up, to remove it from the tip would need to be at the agreement of both the board and the district secretary.
Suzanne?
Suzanne Ziegler again, FDOT. Yes, you are correct. So, in order to get the LDCA, which is the sign off for the PD&E, in which there's also planning consistency and that comes into play, that is the point of no return. And that's our understanding that we have moved forward into engineering. Design, I'm not sure what phase or where we're at in it, but it is my understanding that we are past that point.
Well, let me ask you this. As a practical matter, at what point between an FDOT engineer's fever dream about a project and the point of no return, at what point can the public swoop in and say, we don't want this done, we simply want it removed, take it away?
I'm gonna have to say that, I mean, it was something that was voted on.
Sorry?
I have to say that it was something that was voted on, and it was something that during the PD&E, there was public involvement. And I can't speak, I wasn't in this position or in this light at the time when this was in PD&E. But it's my understanding during those public involvement phases before the LDCA, when they're doing the study, and they're meeting with the public and the elected officials, that's the time to be advocating and moving forward with that. And then, I'm.
Okay, that's fine. I know you weren't there. I was. I appreciate it.
No, and I respect that. I totally respect that. And so for me too, I'm not an engineer either as well. So to speak to something like that magnitude is not, but I mean, I can go back and ask people, at what point when should the advocating for this project have happened? And I'm pretty sure it was the PD&E phase, so.
Okay. Back to you. And I just want to be absolutely certain of this. Of the 40 total projects, 31 of them have been segregated out as projects seeking community support only, right? Item number 36, the widening from Hillsborough to Beers is among that group that is seeking community support only, correct? All right. Well, that's that.
I got a question, and it's probably for you. When did the PD&E phase end? Like, how long ago did this all happen? Or what year did this all happen? Because then also, what is an LDCA?
Well, I don't, you'll have to help with that alphabet soup.
I believe it's a location determination and design, no, location, concept, design, acceptance. It is the very last piece of paper that gets issued to close out the PDD or communicates to the feds. This is what we're gonna do. This is what's been agreed upon.
Thank you. And my question to follow up that is, what date was the LDCA completed?
20, we'd have to look up that letter, but I believe it was 2020 or maybe 2019.
Got it. So 6 years later, so I just understand, I don't understand the process exactly. So like a lot can change, COVID can change, things can change. So something that is that old can still be active without opening it back up for public engagement? Is that right?
I'm not a NEPA expert, but I know those have to be, I'm not even gonna go there. I think. So to your point, you know, if this was issued in 2020, DOT is not even expected to do design until 2034, 2035. Like, I know there's a big delta.
Yeah.
And really what the point of no return, that statute, what it says is that that project cannot be unilateral. To remove that project unilaterally, it has to be done with the board and DOT's acceptance. So
Okay.
it's not saying like the project will happen in this specific way, but for it to be removed from the tip, two parties have to agree.
And the two parties are the planning, or sorry, the
TPO board and FDOT District 7.
got it. Okay.
And Matt, I think you were trying to pose a question to me originally. I'd be happy to at least try.
Yeah, so I guess I'm trying to understand how long, like, when this came through, like, that's been almost 5 years ago, is that correct?
Well,
And what was the outcome of that?
Just a brief historical diversion. This portion of the interstate widening dates back to the original TBX rollout back in 2015. And even beyond that, since the TBX plan is a last century plan. But in 2015, the DOT rolled out TBX as we came to know it at that point. This portion of the interstate widening was part of that, right? What was it, Chris? Maybe 2 years, 3 years into it, around 18 or 19, TBX kind of fell by the wayside, collapsed under its own weight, and then Tampa Bay Next was resurfaced with a new District 7 secretary, David Gwynn. The old guy retired to North Carolina. Gwynn took over. Right? In that increment under TB Next, there were several segments of the interstate. Segment 4 was the West Shore interchange. Segment 5 was the section between West Shore and downtown. Section 6 is the malfunction junction area. Section 7 is the area we're talking about now, Hillsborough out to Beers. And section 8 was downtown east out to County Line Road and maybe beyond. I don't know what the parameters of the project were at that point, but those were the project itemized numbers. 3 was Howard Franklin, and I think 1 and 2 were over on the other side of Pinellas. So as of the time that this project rolled out in 2015, I believe the argument was already being made that these projects were beyond the point of no return before we even knew they existed, right? The argument has been there going back that far. And it has been resurfaced every single time that we have addressed this year upon year upon year. every time we've had a tip review and the community has come forward to argue against this project, along with the other ones. So the exact date, nobody has ever been able to pinpoint for me, and God knows we've had a lot of people standing at that podium trying to tell us when it was. It's a very liquid kind of concept. Even legally, nobody seems to be able to define it.
Got it.
Jamie?
And so at the beginning of this conversation, it was brought forward that the definition of the project has changed multiple times since 2020. And that can even happen
Well, shouldn't,
after?
that's in the NEPA standards, shouldn't.
Well, the definition, yeah, as it originally rolled out, it was intended to be a capacity project.
Sure.
Right, that was gonna be to increase the two lanes, one north, one south, in this one segment, that's all we're talking about, right? What is it, about 5 miles from Hillsborough out to Beers? It was originally a capacity project. In 2021, Pat Kemp, who was then a member of the TPO board, made a motion to strike this section from what we recognized at that point to be the tip, not the priority list, but the tip. And rather than have it be a capacity project at that point, to convert it to a safety project, basically sound walls and maybe some other safety components, right? That motion made in 2021 to that TPO board was sustained by a majority vote. It was probably one of the few victories we had as a community against these projects. It stayed that way, as Elizabeth mentioned earlier, through 21, 22, 23. And in 23 or 4, Josh Wastel came up with a motion, at which point he asked to have the capacity language added back in, right? That was done without any notice to the community. It was during the public hearing. And I believe Hertech even made the comment that it was a bait and switch. He was one of the people that voted against his motion. But in any event, his motion to add capacity back into the language was approved by the board as it existed at that time in 2024, reversing the action of the 2021 board, right? So that's when the language changed. Without any notice, no further action to be taken at all as far as the study. And we've been arguing against it ever since at public hearings for the tip and at LRPT hearings as well. Dustin?
My understanding from what I've been under, I believe from discussions that I've heard based off of this project is that I think there is some guarantee that there's going to be some sort of mass transit reservation for that expansion, or am I wrong on that?
Answer. It'd probably be
But
this
was
side.
that the I-4 expansion?
That
was I-4.
I'll make this comment in response to that question. There were originally, the plan was to have express lanes along this section of 275, right? David Gwynn pulled that vision from consideration within a year or two, probably, of his taking office. I guess it was his olive branch to the community. We're not going to put express lanes through your neighborhood. And rather than have the express lanes, convert them back to general use lanes. To my knowledge, there hasn't been discussion about a transit corridor through that section. There's been discussion about bus rapid transit on that section, but not a specific transit corridor as in light rail or something of that sort that might be in the median. That discussion has been on I-4 and 275 between downtown and the airport, not the section north to Beers. I hope that doesn't confuse the issue.
No, it doesn't confuse you. I just have a hard time understanding why there's so much opposition when traffic flow around this whole entire metro complex is horrendous. And we understand that it's such a hard time to get things to even just, get people off of driving the streets into something else, getting some sort of travel capability of that type even approved around here, because nobody wants to spend any money. Or when we do get money approved for it, then niches of society in this area decides to take it to legal court and get it overturned by who knows what powers of the judicial system. So from a citizen's perspective, it just baffles me that we're trying to enhance the ability of people to freely move around this metro area, yet we want to stymie that progress. You know, and one thing to look at is we live in an area where we're creeping into a time period where it's an annual event, 6 months out of the year. We have the fear of hurricanes coming through here, and then you have the mass rush of people trying to get out of Dodge when a hurricane is projected to land in this area. Okay, that's my 2 cents.
Matt, I saw your hand up again.
I do have one thing. When the highway's going through your neighborhood, you probably feel different. When the exhaust fumes are going into your kids' lungs, you probably feel different. When you've lived there before all this expansion came in, you probably feel different. So the perspective of who are the citizens that we are moving, the people who live in that area can use mass transit because we have it and we chose to live down there. We just chose not to buy cheaper houses out in the suburbs and drive in and use those facilities and ask the people who live there to give up their health, their houses, and their security so that people could commute faster through an area that was not designed for it. So when you talk about the citizenry of who it's supporting, it's the people who actually live there. And that's where the bus comes is if the wall is going next to your house and your community, you probably feel different. And then if you're a commuter, there's a lot of people who choose to live there so they can take the bus downtown versus commuting for 40 minutes to come from South County or Wesley Chapel or Pasco, because that area is supporting other counties, not just Hillsborough. That's the short.
You know what? Can I say something here? Because I think I do have a right to respond to this. I appreciate your words. You just proved a point here. This is all about the has and have nots. He made a motion that basically, you know, it wasn't because of everybody who went and bought a cheaper house somewhere. Just prove that those people that are fighting this are the ones that has. And the ones that can't, we had to go someplace else. You know, I live in an area where stuff is going on that's about ready to affect lives of people, health and so forth. Okay. Do we have any action on that decision making? No. But I mean,
I'm going to pass the gavel. I do have a motion to make. Stephen, thank you.
Rick Fernandez.
Thank you. Make a motion to strike item ranked 36. FPID number 431821-3, defined as I-275 Hillsborough Avenue to Beers Avenue widening, description, capacity project, to strike that item from the FY 28 through 32 priority list. Requesting a second.
Second.
Stella, second. Do we have any discussion?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And I'm not going to make this long-winded at all. I asked the questions I asked earlier in the hopes that there would be some discussion. A lot of what I was probably going to say anyway has already been said to a degree by myself or others. This project has been vetted before this committee going back. Well, I've been on here, since 2017. Every year since 2017, and before that, because I was standing at that podium at public comment arguing against it. For the last several years, this committee, and I know the precedent of this doesn't bind anyone, but this committee has voted to strike these TBX Tampa Bay Next projects from the tip. They continue to surface, they come back in different forms. It's almost alchemy the way it happens. But this committee has been generally very supportive of the community. And I wanted to be very, very clear that this is one of the projects that is on the list because it seeks community support only, right? Please understand, there is no community support for this project. If you've been around breathing anywhere in the urban core for the last 10 years, and you've gone to the public hearings, the community hearings, the charrettes, the TPO board meetings for the last 10 years, you know that the community that has to bear the burden of this project does not want this project coming through its neighborhood. And why? Because Matt Sink touched upon it earlier. We didn't have an interstate cutting through our neighborhoods back in 1959. That happened after Eisenhower and the projects came through, that complements to his interstate highway system. Our neighborhoods were bifurcated. They were practically destroyed during that period of time. I was living there. I saw it. I was a child. And now they want to continue that damage to the neighborhoods over and over and over again. We have no transit options. The only game in town is to keep on widening roads, putting cars on those roads, and then allow induced capacity to do its magic, make another parking lot only bigger, and then come back in 10 years and ask to widen the highway again. That's where we are now. They're coming back for, I don't know, the second or third round to widen the interstate again. This time, 2 more lanes, which are not funded. The project, as best I recall, is not even projected out until 2035 at a cost of $400 million at the time of construction for 2 freaking lanes that we don't want, right? So I'm going to keep making this argument. I'm going to make it in front of the board. The board's not going to do this. I know that. There's not enough votes on the board right now. Only election is going to cure this. But this committee is supposed to be speaking for the neighborhoods. It's supposed to be speaking for the community. This is not a political body in the same way the TPO board is. So I hope that you folks will support the neighborhoods that are bearing the brunt of this burden. And it has nothing at all to do with the haves and have-nots. These roads are running through some of the most poverty-ridden communities in the entire city of Tampa. The Black, brown, Latinos, a lot of poor people that cannot afford anything. They're generational residents in their communities, they're legacy residents. They're very poor, very diverse community. I live in one, Tampa Heights, Ybor City is the same thing. That's one of the reasons I'm living there is because it is diverse. My neighbors are very different from me, but I love them. If people aren't fighting for them, nobody is fighting for them. So that's why I'm here. That's why I'll be there next week. That's why I've been here every year for the last 10 years. So support it or don't. I know going in, the board is going to reject this. Until Wastel is gone and some others are gone, they're going to keep on rejecting it. But as long as this project keeps coming back, which it will for another 10 years, we're going to keep on fighting against it. That's all. I'll shut up. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, Chris.
A little bit. Yeah, I'd hate for this whole board to become divided, pointing fingers. But the situation, and I live right at the downtown interchange. What motivated me to get involved in this committee and also in transportation is the lack of say of what we can say provide to the project. And when I found out about the interchange and how it started and how it is actually the most structural racism project ever had in our lifetime. I mean, no other project has removed Blacks and Hispanics than this project. There's tons of evidence in that, tons of resources. So since day one, starting in 1957, we never had a chance at all. And so what does that translate to today? Well, I'm going to tell you a quick little story and I'll wrap it up. There's been a lot of fruit trees in my neighborhood, avocados, star fruits, mangoes, you name it. And when the work started happening in my backyard, all those fruit trees got ripped up. Myself, my family, my neighbors relied on those fruit trees. Like we actually used them for food, like normal people would. And so when it came to discussions about beautification and like what it's going to look like the end result, you know, it might be staring at a brick wall as opposed to a concrete one. I asked a small little request, you know, can we get back those fruit trees? Can we get back to avocado trees? So FDOT says, that's up to Tampa. So I went to Tampa and FDOT does give them over $1 million for beautification for all this landscape. And then the city is like, no, you're not going to get back the fruit trees. This is too much maintenance. So we're talking about fruit tree. If you go to Home Depot, you know how much those things cost. They're not like too expensive. I can't even get my own fruit trees back. That and here we hear all these discussions in the planning commission about food deserts, access to goods. And then I hear about the city talking about having shade, urban heat island effect. And sometimes after I will be talking about these things just to sell a project. But the reality is, once these things are nearing completion and all the promises that are made and beautification projects are promised, you really don't get a shred of anything. And it took, I know Rick's neighborhood, it took over 12 years just to get the Green Trail Tampa Heights completed. And it isn't even completed to what it was sold to the crowd in 1996. So they're gonna button this up and try to sell it in a sexy way. But even from a standpoint of a treat for me and versus also being stuck in gridlock, you're never gonna get your value going after a project like this. And so most certainly, we can transmit these minutes, our talk, our discussions over to Tallahassee so they understand we don't want solutions. We don't want to be stuck in gridlock. So really, this is your opportunity to say something about it because there are people watching. It might not be your local leader, but they are watching from the state side and they'll hear what you have to say. So definitely just, again, just please recognize the future of this project and how it arrived here, because that's the reality. And it's been largely unfair to me. Thanks.
Yeah, Susie.
I'm not young. I'm reading a lot of books about health span, how many years you're going to be healthy versus how many years you're going to live. And the statistic that screamed at me was if you're adjacent to a highway, 25% increase of heart disease, lung disease, and cancer. I never thought it was that high. And this is scientific. This wasn't just some little blob. This was a big old book by big old brains. So, this is a real issue. We need to realize that this has impacts for today and moving forward.
Thanks, Susie. Yeah, Adrian.
I just want to make the point, something that I feel like is also compounding some of the negativity around this, or maybe it's not, but what was decided last year on Tampa and Florida and the improvements that were made there, or maybe lack thereof, really was just infrastructure, maybe some sewer drainage, rather than really, you're expanding roadways right to the east. These are 3 lanes north, 3 lanes south. Effectively, it's another 275, really truly cutting through the heights and then, further north. We really just solidified and memorialized that road continuing to operate in its existing fashion for, decades to come. Given where we are with the I-275 expansion, I would like to see, an olive branch extended on how we address the improvements on those roadways. I think some of the studies went back to the late teens for how those decisions ended up being made, and maybe not adjusting for more recent evidence or the fact that there was moving forward with expansions of 275 up to Hillsborough and then potentially onto Bears. I think that really just maybe doubled down on some of the community sentiment or in the lack of maybe listening to the community. I think that was a real big missed opportunity with Tampa and Florida.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Anybody else? Yeah, Cliff.
I agree with everything that Rick has said. And we do have a chicken and egg problem because the commuters exist. All the building that's gone on up north can't be stopped. My only concern is, as a user of 275 on occasion, everybody south of Hillsborough is now living with bumper to bumper, 4 or 5 lanes of traffic sitting there that has difficulty moving north. And not that I agree with the expansion, but if you eliminate that bottleneck and get smoother traffic flow going north, does that help that community south of Hillsborough by getting those cars moving instead of sitting and idling in 4 or 5 lanes of bumper to bumper traffic? Stuck because there is no widening north of the Hillsborough line.
What is the term I'm thinking of? Where you start with amount of demand, yeah, 2 lanes, induced demand. We should all learn about induced demand.
But I think that's kind of where I was going with Florida and Tampa. If you're attracting and inducing more demand onto I-275, there should be an offset. And we're not talking about two different organizations. We're talking about DOT, I think, doubling down on both I-275 and then solidifying 3 lanes north, 3 lanes south in the middle of the neighborhood, just to the west of it. And I think if you're going to induce demand, or you feel like there needs to be traffic that's smoother, okay, on 275, but then have an offset on Florida and Tampa really what's, I think breaking that neighborhood in half.
Thank you. We're gonna keep. Yeah, this has been the topic over my 8 years on the CAC. This has been the one that's had the most passion behind it. It's the most exciting conversations we have all year. These are passion conversations, and I feel for you guys that it's not just an exciting thing. It's really important things. And I feel for you, Rick. I've seen you almost break into tears about this topic over the years, and this is so. I as a representative of Plant City, I'll be voting no for this. So it's what my constituents favor. In general, I'm not a fan of widening roads to build different communities. Yeah, with that, we'll let's take a roll call vote.
Okay, and if I could just clarify for everyone, the motion is to strike item rank 36 and the FPM number and project name and description are listed after that for them to relist.
Right.
So, Rick Fernandez,
Yes.
Stephen Hollenkamp,
No.
Susie Watts. Yes. Matt Zink,
Yes.
IASB. No. Andrew Marchetti.
No.
Chris Vella,
Yes.
Chris Gonzalez,
Yes.
Dustin Johnson,
No.
Idea Adams,
Yes.
Stephen Jones,
Yes.
Cliff Reese,
No.
Jamie Jones,
Yes.
Stephen Gaynor.
Yes.
Yes.
Would be 9 yes, so the motion passes. 9-5.
Thank you. All right. You have any other motion practice related to the, sorry, could you put the ask back up?
Right.
The recommended action is recommend acceptance of the FY 28 through 32 priority list to the TPO board. At this point, that would be the priority list as has been amended by the previously litigated motion. Is there an enabling motion? Susie Watts. Susie offers the enabling motion. Is there a second? Stephen Jones offers the second discussion. See no discussion in the room. Is there anybody online?
Discussion.
All right. I think we can probably do this by acclamation. All in favor of the motion, please signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed, same sign. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Elizabeth. All right, that takes us to action item Bravo, Henderson Boulevard, Manhattan Avenue Vision Plan.
Lisa Civil will be presenting, just to show for you, the chair and the committee, we're running slightly behind, so I asked Lisa to a little bit faster if she can. I know Lisa talks fast, so if it's too fast,
Cover a lot fast. You guys ready to light things up? Yeah. Okay, let's go. TPO staff, and not only am the project manager of this corridor plan, but who was asking questions about Collins Street? Okay, I was project manager of that back in 2013. Yes, I'm aging myself. Okay, so I'm the Vision Zero coordinator for the camp for the TPO2. So this is another one of those things where we're looking at safety and multi-mobility. So okay, I'll remind you, I brought this project and introduced it and all the background materials earlier. So if you're new, sorry, but you're going to get the highlights of the stuff we've covered since then. Let's bring myself out there for a second. Okay, so what is this project? Well, it is Henderson Boulevard and Manhattan Avenue, all the way from Kennedy Boulevard south to Gainesville. So that's a very large and long corridor. Last month I was here on Bierce, so it was only 1 mile. This is a whopping 4.1 miles. And so it's different. It's also different in the scope of what we were looking at. This one is called a vision plan on purpose because it's the big picture vision. Like, what does the corridor want to be when it grows up, like an entirety, not go out there and fix some things in right now at interim. So it's going to be multiple stages. So you're getting the big picture concepts of the vision that the city would like for it. But we got a lot of other players on this corridor. So it is all within the city limits. So it's city boundary, but the first segment at the north is owned and maintained by the Department of Transportation. Then there's some city-owned portions, and then there's county-owned and maintained portions on the southern portion of the corridor. So all of them are part of our stakeholder committee and met with us several times over the length of the project. They were all involved in the concepts and recommendations. So again, I'm covering this stuff really fast. So we did lots of data collection, so speeds and counts and bike ped counts, adjacent land uses. We went out in the field for 2 days and we drug our wagon with us. So we even experienced like what it would be like for anybody rolling the corridor, traveled it at night. Did all that. So then we also engaged the community and got their feedback in it and then developed the alternatives. So again, going through the fast flow structure and covered everything. Okay, so our existing conditions looked at, I'll remind you, this corridor has like people parking and driving right on the walking area. The right of way is used for the adjacent businesses. It's so not like it's supposed to be. So it's not conforming all over the place. For that, it changes context. So some parts are a little more urban and mixed use, non-residential. Some portions are very residential. So here's some highlights of us going out in the field. And these are the various stakeholders. So not only do we have the 3 jurisdictions involved in the TPO, but we're like, hey, we're looking at multimodal and safety. Let's involve our advocacy groups. So Walk Back Tampa and Sidewalk Stompers assisted us in this. This was fabulous because we learned about the 5 adjacent schools next to the corridor. So, and then when we were out there, we observed a lot of the kids going across the corridor. So we got to address those safety concerns in our alternatives. We developed 3 different types of alternatives. One was like very pedestrian focused. One had a bike focus and there was a hybrid. Took those alternatives out to the public and tested them. You might recall, I was inviting you all to the charrette when I was here before. So we hosted a charrette in the community. You can see the roll plots of all the ideas and recommendations and existing conditions there in the room. We had also then a parallel online engagement of the same thing. So you could see the same map and put your comments there. If you could come to the charrette, got lots of emails. My email is all over the website. So we reflected and documented those in the public engagement technical memo. Had interactive things around the room. The community says, slow it down, get all the facilities, special cross-section areas. We wanted to test those out, make sure we were recommending that because there's not a lot of opportunities to safely cross the corridor, get cross it. Had some good attendance. They identified those, you might recall, there's those 6-legged intersections. So they're really fun and challenging. Everything's at an angle in this corridor. Not everything, but a lot of things. And so they got their feedback. So then we I have this lovely, very giant report here. That's, that I'm summarizing very quickly, but it is broken into these chapters. So if you want to get, snooze, you can read the whole thing if you'd like. But we have our vision, plans, and recommendations that I'm going to walk you through now. 4 miles is broken up into like 9 different segments. I'm going to hit some of the highlights because you have the report attached to your agenda item, but we've looked at some adding some medians and some access management here. Portion. Jump to my notes. Sure, I covered this part. All right. So starting on the north. Mid-block crossings, refuges, helping with this site distance, looking at some opportunities to realign some intersections to make them safer. There are a series of 2-lane roundabouts proposed along the corridor that will help with that speed management. Also helps when you do put some medians in, and then help the great opportunities for really easy to do a U-turn and get back to where you need to go on the other portions of the corridor. Where that's not feasible, there's also these 6-legged intersections. See how we're like adding some refuge islands and getting some of the extra pavement area where it's causing confusion and safety issues redone. This could be and then also the traffic signal timings for like, oh, there's opportunities to improve that along the corridor. And then some of these we have in the vision to look at considering closing a leg of the roadway, not dissimilar to what is out there in the existing condition with Morrison, that here at Morrison, it's a lovely, slow, bike-friendly roadway, and but it is not easy to get across this corridor if you're on a bike. So we're saying, hey, let's strike that and make that a special designated area, add a bike signal, traffic signal, so that they have their go and they can get across. So enhancements there. Like I mentioned, you can see the mid-block crossings here. Added those strategically along the corridor. Again, fleshed all these ideas out with our stakeholders, so they match up the things. And then we took a lot of proposed adjacent studies and reflected and analyzed those. So there's some stormwater projects, some traffic calming projects, some other safety improvements in the area. Those were all baked into the recommendations. The southern portion of the corridor has some existing bike lanes. So for that one, we're like, hey, let's narrow the lanes a little bit and add some buffer to that because that'll make it much more comfortable and safe. Mentioned the illegal parking on the roadway and stuff. So we're like, hey, let's propose something in the interim. Maybe there's some paint or texture treatments that we could do to make and define that pedestrian area better, because it's not like tomorrow we can go out and fix all these non-conforming land uses. It is a vision plan, so it's got several next steps that are going to be necessary to turn this into reality, including, I think the survey is dated 1941, so it does not really match and it's not super accurate. So we'd have to start there to even be able to start doing design plans. We coordinated, there's a land development code update going on. The comprehensive plan was being updated as the corridor was going on. Those considerations are reflected in the vision, but we're saying continue to do that because as this corridor redevelops on the property sides, we've got to get that and not keep creating the same issue ongoingly. Some more analysis on those big visionary innovative intersection designs. It does enjoy some bus stops now, but CART's very interested in collaborating with us on the transit needs along the corridor. We propose safety improvements reflective of the 5 adjacent schools, but we're saying go in and around those 5 schools, maybe do some road safety audits to get some of the things we observed solved around and closer to the schools would be some next steps. Some more, obviously drainage and traffic signal timing and bringing luckily they're part of a grant and 3 of the intersection signals are being upgraded at the end of that grant the city won, but the rest of them need to come into this,
Okey dokey. Any questions for Lisa? Okay, left side of the road. Yes, sir.
Having looked at the rather complete design plan, 1,000 piers, is it?
Fair Pierce.
Yeah, my only question was there wasn't concern about large vehicles. You know, sort of navigate some of the road changes, is that been?
Yeah. Yeah, back, I was just reading a sentence, we maintain 11 feet minimum on the outside lanes on the whole corridor. Yes.
Any other questions to my left? Well, everybody. All right, Andrew?
As far as next steps and funding, where would the funding come from? And I get, this is just approving the vision plan, but I guess survey, because I think where would the funding come from?
That's up to the jurisdiction. So City of Tampa is where it is and it's a big vision and some of it have to be cobbled together. So like the survey, predictably the City of Tampa. Some of the other things might be a follow-up study. TPO helps with, like, I could see the planning commission and the TPO doing a joint land use transportation step that was on there, and talked to my colleagues down the hall about that. So that could be funded by the planning commission or TPO dollars for planning studies. This county owns and maintains that southern portion. They have a Safe Streets for All grant for some first tier level improvements already planned and maybe even begun construction soon. So they would be maintaining and doing the recommendations on their portion of the corridor. The Department of Transportation has interested in the northern portion. All of them, we did have the very frank discussion. There's interlocal agreements right now for all this. They own and maintain it, but it's the cities. Ideally, it'd be really great if this vision plan were implemented and they could transfer it back to city ownership and they could maintain their own roadway. Not dissimilar to what's occurred for Channel District Drive. Side Drive.
Where does this over here? Sorry. Where does the county start? So if you could just walk through like the
Euclid, I
application.
think it's Euclid, up to Euclid.
Up to Euclid.
Oh, well, that's 4 miles.
So, I have a loose understanding that currently, vehicle lanes can't be closed. Right? There's a current rule in place for that.
Trend right now is that there's extra steps that have to be done for lane repurposing.
And how
It's
does it,
adopted into state law so that this be done in certain special areas. It was not sought as a tool in the toolbox for this corridor.
but Morris Avenue is going to close and things like that, right? So,
That's not lane repurposing. That's not getting a lane. It's closing one leg of a 6-legged intersection. That's distinct and different. That's
fine.
more access.
I'll learn.
Access
How's that go?
Matt?
Thank you for your presentation. I have a question about, you mentioned the planning commission for their input. But being that the bigger thing is going to be land use and setbacks and building stuff, was there a component for actually the city of Tampa? Because city of Tampa code sits on top of future land use.
Yep, item number 3. And I've been attending the code update discussions as they relate to corridors as a stakeholder. And they've been invited to comment and review this study. So yeah, collaboration.
Thank you.
They've got a consultant that's been in contact too. Keep volunteering. Manhattan and Henderson is our first project.
Other hands here, my left. Stephen?
Thank you for that.
Third even.
For transportation in terms of transit and bikes and pedestrian access. You talked about the land use and wasn't sure what is appropriate to show in these kinds of studies, but the building form is a part of the transportation and bikes that, and you pointed out the problem with some of the places where parking was kind of encroaching on those spaces that I don't know if that'd be something to show on these kind of graphs to show how the space changes if the building form is changed to be by the sidewalk rather than having parking next to the sidewalks.
That's that parallel corridor analysis so I did the public right of way design, but did not ignore that there are private property issues. But the code regulates that, so that's why we're all talking to each other and saying the code implementation and updates need to work to fix these, not create them in the future. And then applying that then to this corridor, and then one of the next steps would be to have that joint land use and transportation study to dive in a little deeper. This one was just looking at the safety and multimodality for the public realm, and I point out the vision issues on site.
Yeah.
Stephen, you good?
I had one other question, which was the grassy strips, which they pointed out helped with, improving the pedestrian experience on the sidewalk. But they also point out the need for shade. And if that could be used for shade as well as for stormwater reclamation in those spaces, which would change kind of the characteristic of those if they were used in those ways. So I don't know if that could be part of the future study of really looking at the potential of those.
Ecoways, little Green Street, yes, all part of the recommendations. We're just conceptually designing that construction document design details in this phase. So yeah, that's good.
Great.
It's all in there.
Okay. Cliff, you good? Over to the right. Chris Bella.
I just want to say thanks for that charrette. Like, I enjoyed it. Yeah. I have a question about
That's a fun story too. Chris presented, like, your bike project for you did for the cat. Yeah, I see that too.
So I did the bike, which I badly need to update. Don't need to go to like the capital improvements map, but I'll do that one day. But like that corridor to me is top notch. Like, it has to happen. There's no way to get to Sauk, South Tampa safely. That's like the best intersection that's the worst because traffic and crashes. Going to that question, piggyback off the question about the right of way, I think that was discussed. So your intent is to kind of work with the planning commission on like land use. And that, would that like offset some of the private right of way that you would need? Is that what you're sort of saying? Or do you think like a lot of the private right of way is still gonna be the same? Like, and when we're talking about that right of way that you need, because it says in the report, or one of them I read, you need like $55.7 million right of way acquisition. So I'm assuming that's only like the tips of private lots, or like how's that?
Oh, well, I don't know if that's the correct number on the right back, but so the 2-lane roundabouts would clip some corners of private, and some of it could, and again, you can see on these parcels, some of like, you can't build back, so bigger visionary to solve this appropriately, especially given that many of the private property has encroached into the public right of way. It's going to take some creative solutions. So we're saying we need to take a deeper dive, look at that. At least it's not going to solve that in a 1-year project. That's only looking at the roadway portion of it. I'm hopeful that some of the stuff that they're dealing with the code updates and the corridor applications of some of those, because this isn't the only place in Tampa that this exists. The big brainiacs on the code team are helping come up with those solutions. I'm saying after they do, let's start looking at how to and what's appropriate to apply them here.
Right, okay.
And it may have to be picked, every rezoning and stuff, but if you don't have something on the plan to strive for, then they can't work to try to implement it.
But since I know like parks is super full, so I know there's like in more sections. This would be, they can just drive over the roundabout, right? Like, it would be a sign where they can.
It's meant to be mountable so that we wouldn't have a school bus or other issues.
So like it's a modular roundabout system,
It,
because I was studying
conceptual,
those.
did I mention vision and concept, like where I know them breaking down the road, that's probably, but we didn't have it labeled. You don't see any traffic signals in here because we're not saying exactly where they are. We're not saying whether it's a RFB or a hawk or anything, it's conceptual, very conceptual. Let's change before we get to the design.
Yeah, because they do have
But we
roundabouts.
work with all of that.
Yeah, that as much as a car, so $30,000-$40,000 you have roundabout, they're all modular. They do work,
Okay, yeah.
they have them out west, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, we move on to any other questions here to the right? Susie?
Thank you, great presentation. You referred to buffered bike lanes. Would they have a physical barrier like the sticks, or is
Yeah.
it just gonna have the extra little?
At a minimum, it'll have the stripe, and where appropriate, it'll have the vertical deflection, something. Again, not saying whether it's the little humps or the vertical button, whatever the greatest, bestest technology at the time would be what's proposed. There are many driveways and side triangles and stuff that we have to, so it won't be everywhere. There's some transit stops that it does not make it easy for the people on and off the buses, with those vertical deflectors too close. So yes, when we zoom in and have a survey dated in the century and stuff, that all get flushed out.
If you look at accidents and deaths of bicyclists, it really doesn't help unless you have a vertical stick.
Oh, yeah.
The other things, it doesn't help as much. I mean, it's dramatic, the difference. I don't remember the numbers.
For sure.
Aya? Anything?
No questions. Thank you very much for a great presentation.
Any questions online?
Anyone online?
Okay, we're running behind time, so I'm gonna close up on the Q&A here. Can we get the ask?
There it is.
Oh, thank you.
I can read your.
You anticipated me. Recommended action. Recommend the TPO board approve the Henderson Boulevard Manhattan Avenue Vision Plan. Sarah, enabling motion. Looks like the whole room. Susie, I'll pick on you. You make the enabling motion, and there's a second from Chris Vella. Okay? We all can argue about it all later. Any further discussion in the room on the motion? No? Any discussion online?
Anyone online on the motion?
All right, by acclamation then, all in favor of the motion signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. All right, you have a unanimous approval, Lisa.
I'll take it.
Okay, that takes us out of action items now, and we are in status reports.
Yes.
Local roadways, countermeasures. Matthew Pleasant.
Before Matt starts, Wyatt Rochelle of our staff is going to introduce the project and turn it over to Matt.
Good evening, CAC, Wyatt Burchell, TPO staff. As you know, the Hillsborough County's transportation network is particularly vulnerable to impacts like extreme heat, flooding, and other hazards. To this end, the Hillsborough Transportation Planning Organization initiated the Local Roadway Resilience Countermeasures Study earlier this year, and we've been working with Applied Sciences staff, who you'll hear from later. This effort focuses on 3 representative roadway types across the county, each representing emblematic or each one being reflective of a different kind of vulnerability. The goal is to explore what solutions are most appropriate in each context and to develop strategies that can be broadly applied to similar roads throughout Hillsborough County. Before we begin, I want to emphasize that the materials you'll see today are not prepared or proposed projects or changes. Rather, they are just examples of current best practices and represent analysis of common resilience challenges faced by the Hillsborough Transportation Network. Secondly, the TPO's role is not to implement these improvements directly, but to provide up-to-date research, tools, and guidance that can support our partner agencies who do implement projects, as well as I mentioned, serve as an educational resource for those partners and for the public broadly. So this presentation is intended to give you a clearer understanding of the work that's been completed so far. And if there's time later, we'd be glad to take any questions that you have and welcome any feedback or particular solutions to these problems that maybe haven't been captured in the presentation. And with that, I want to introduce Matthew Pleasant with Applied Sciences to walk us through the update.
All right, good evening, everybody. I'm Pleasant with Applied Sciences. Thanks for that great introduction, Wyatt. And jump right into it, trying to quickly make it not as fast as it's so. Right. Project overview. You got the introduction from Wyatt, but just going into a little bit more of the distinct stats that we have for part of the project. We did go through all existing resiliency plans that we could find that have been done in the area going all the way back to 2014. Looking at what's been done so far, what corridors have been focused on, and we were trying to find a representative corridors that are kind of show the vulnerabilities that our infrastructure faces. We brought this to a technical stakeholder committee made up of planning, engineering, and emergency management staff in Hillsborough County, the city of Tampa, and Tampa International Airport. Get some feedback on how they're already kind of trying to tackle these, what the discussion is internally. And we moved right into strategy development and kind of a toolkit, broad toolkit of floodplain management techniques, transportation planning, urban design, landscape architecture, to see what we could apply to these corridors to try to make a difference in some of the threats that they're seeing. And then we want to package everything, the ultimate goal is going to package everything into a guidebook that is practitioner facing and also public facing. So you kind of use this as you're developing these projects. Like the one that we just heard about, you try to start kind of brainstorming about how we're going to apply these. So just to talk about what we mean by countermeasure a little bit and also why we care. We have the threats that we're facing right now is really with flooding and heat. We've already had a record this year for the earliest calendar day in the year for to have 90 degrees. Last year we had a record. First time ever we've hit 100 degrees. The heat index has been in that range before, but first time with 100 degrees. And part of the reason why we care is there's an impact on the people using the roads, and there's also the impact on the infrastructure itself. So it being hot, that has that impacts no choice, travel decisions every day, timing of trips. Someone might be less likely to make a trip if they're reliant on a wide walking and biking. And then the wear on just ages the roadway over time. These are things that are already affecting the roadway, but we're seeing this increasingly, and it impacts the lifespan of the roadway. So we want to package this together in a guidebook and to have it nicely illustrated to communicate how these things can benefit in corridor. See a couple of examples there along the bottom. We're going to talk about expanding tree canopy and supporting the existing canopy using things like permeable pavers, things like drainage planters that go by different names. And that will be wrapping that up now and back in June. So just a couple of real world examples to talk about. On the left, you see a roadway elevation that was done in Miami Beach in the Sunset Harbor neighborhood. That picture is sunny day flooding in that neighborhood. So that it's one of the lowest areas of Miami Beach. It sits lower than high tide at certain time of the year. And so that water's backflowing from stormwater infrastructure without any rainfall event causing that amount of flooding. In 2015, they elevated the roadway in that area from 2.5 to 3 feet. Which solved the flooding issue, but caused other problems outside the roadway. You can see the commercial area sits lower than the roadway itself. They had to come in and actually install pumps to pump those areas out. And the business owners, some of them weren't too happy about that. And you can imagine it's a very expensive kind of intervention. In the middle, this is what the city of Philadelphia calls a stormwater bump out. We have local examples of this too. This is designed to actually intercept the stormwater as it's before intercept that runoff before it actually reaches this stormwater system. And then on the right there is from
the city of Phoenix, they are experimenting and have gone pretty far in the use of pool pavement coatings. This is that reflective coating on the roadway that reduces the surface temperature of the roadway to kind of mitigate that aging impact of high heat. And then, it's not that asphalt isn't absorbing heat over the course of the day and has less to release at night. So those nighttime temperatures are benefited. So we'll go through the representative corridors here. The first one is Danish Shores Drive in Town and Country. This is representative title and rainfall flooding. It was closed during Hurricane Debby because of the flooding. I found out about that later. We actually picked it because it was highlighted in the Tampa Vulnerability Assessment. It's actually maintained by Hillsborough County. This is the jurisdictional line that runs along Danish Shores Drive. So it's kind of split between two jurisdictions. The county maintains this canal streets to the south. This is what, it's also very representative of a historic development pattern in Florida. This is what it looked like in 1938. And Rocky Point Golf Course is already there. It was called something different. They say that there were golf courses in the state. And you can just see how that development sort of grown up around the golf course there. This is what the floodplain model looks like for this area. We updated it with the future sea level rise figures. And long story short, what's happening is that water is trying to flow from the north from Memorial Highway there and kind of sheet flows over the road down into the golf course and is trying to get out the culverts that are on Danish Shores Drive. It's just backing up, causing that flooding. There's also a very low point in the roadway. That bottom curve, that bottom rectangle, it's about 3.8 feet in elevation. These are some things that we heard from our stakeholder committee members on the street. One of these comments, we talked about roadway elevations in this area. They said they brought for this before, but most of the time it's not feasible to elevate a road because you require land before the water that you're displacing. So you're going to displace floodplain, go in and elevate the road. But you got to put it somewhere. And so when you're in this kind of area, it's really physically constrained. You got to find a place to put it. We did kind of in conversation talk about the potential Rocky Point golf course, maybe finding a way to store it there. Maybe instead of 18 holes, maybe it's 16 holes. I don't know. But that's kind of the coastal representative corridor. This is 78th Street in South County in the Progress Village. We picked this after looking at the floodplain models for the county, so the Delaney Creek watershed. And we specifically focused in 78th, it's a much longer corridor. We focused in on Eagle Palm Drive and south to Riverview Drive. This is what some of the floodplains look like at different storm scenarios. A lot of times we talk about the 100-year scenario. There's a whole suite of kind of design storms that we use to design improvements and consider vulnerability that are more frequently occurring than the 100-year. So this is the mean annual left, the 10-year, the 5-year floodplain. And we found there's an area right around Eagle Palm Drive that's particularly the flooding, and kind of validated that with going out to the corridor and talking. This area and the wider area, this is Oak Creek, the development here on the right. It's a much more highly engineered sort of stormwater management system. That system, and then also the kind of soil system on 78th Street is highly reliant on Archie Creek and kind of drains. So we think it's just kind of backing up there, all that area, there is higher volume events, sort of backing up the cost of the flooding that's there. So like digging into like the depth of flooding though, there's like portions of that are like, we're talking in inches there. And there's a lot of tough areas of flooding in the county, and it's kind of sparking discussion on level of service, floodplain level of service. Stakeholder committee members said that it's better to spend the money where you can eliminate flooding or achieve the 25-year level of service, or that we designed to. So one of the comments. Finally, North Boulevard. This is
This is chosen because it's highlighted in the Tampa Heat playbook as being very vulnerable to heat for its minimal canopy, high land surface temperatures, and limited access to cooling cycles, among other factors. We looked specifically for the study purposes of that, the north section of north of 275, next to Blake High School, Publix on the other side, and then down to Cass. And so we also want to include in the guidebook sort of like a little bit about the diagnosis kind of framework you're kind of working through a corridor. These are some of the things that you'll find in there. We're looking at the available right-of-way space and how much of that is paved versus unpaved. The presence of overhead power lines is a big limiting factor to your tree canopy. You can see on the first apartments there that are supposed to be redeveloped. The power lines there, so maybe there's an opportunity to vary those in the future and actually have tree canopy on that side of North Boulevard. And then just looking at the ground conditions, whether that's actually the actual soil around the tree, and it's a struggling freight burrow there that is outside of like high school. We would expect it to look a little bit better, but it doesn't. For some reasons, maybe it's just the drought. Or could be something with soil compaction, it's bad soil. And then there's areas where you can actually kind of strip out some materials. We have a pork chop island there, kind of we can turn that into something. And you're really with heat, you're just trying to think about those surfaces and where you put in those permeable surfaces that are going to reduce that heat on the so we're compiling the guidebook. We're going to kind of conceptually kind of apply those to the corridors while being realistic about what we can achieve. But we have some pretty bad flight challenges, and like data shortages is a pretty tough issue without a lot of high dollar kind of interventions. So want to be sort of realistic about framing what we can do with these, and then bring that back to you guys in terms of production. And with that, thank you very much, and happy to answer any questions.
All right, before we go to Q&A, let me just make this observation. We are probably flirting with violating the 8 o'clock adjournment at this point. We are behind schedule. Part of that is my fault. I own that. We have no action items remaining. So if anybody needs to leave at the stroke of 8, please do so. We're not going to talk about you in your absence. All right. That said, I still would like to gavel out at 8. So if we can limit the Q&A here, at least try to be very pointed about your questions, and the responses, please very pointed about responses. This item, as I understand, is coming back to us as an action item next month.
Yes,
so we'll have another shot at it. And if you have any Q&A that you want to deal with after this meeting, you can address it with Sarah and with the presenter after the meeting. All right, offline. That said, Q&A. To my left.
One question. These are all county roads, or are they FDOT or city streets?
So, yes, so we were very intentional about the roads that we had chosen. North Boulevard is in city of Tampa, the rest are.
Thank you. That's it.
Okay, I'm Stephen and then Cliff.
I have 2 really just quick points. For the for painting the roads, the reflective paint, some cities, they used a color that was really too bright, and it was actually heating up people on the side of the road. So I didn't know what the LRV was that they suggested, but just to pay attention to whatever, and possibly coordinating it architecturally with the district. And the other thing is, in Atlanta, there's a project called the Beltline, and they used some of the areas that flood as parks. And so they become public space. But the problem the city has is people who don't know call the city in a panic that their park is flooded. The city says working is planned. But these are also potential for great public spaces.
Okay. Cliff?
Good representative choices, the 3 that you selected. Just one question. 78th Street is near the Hillsborough Solid Waste Mountain. Does that have a negative effect on the area?
That's a great question. So RG Creek, you can find little pictures of RG Creek kind of running almost straight through where the chip stack is now. And been rerouted around that stack over the years as they've expanded it, and they want to expand it again. But to say, like, they've also had to mitigate for that, so when they rerouted, they have to create floodplain to kind of account for that, so.
That's a chip stack, not solid waste.
No, that is existing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, right side. Chris Vella,
Controversial question. I'm a big proponent for management training because we're just gonna be underwater, like literally, and feel like they're way out of it. Has there been any preliminary discussions or will there be any directions looking at a management training scenario? And then two, has UT expressed any interest in improving North Boulevard, potentially as a bike ped project, which could bundle up with the improvements you want?
Well, just really quick, because I know we're against time, but just briefly, managed retreat strategy, I think that's a little bit outside the purview of but.
Yeah, we do talk about property acquisition, talk about that angle that, you know, you might need to acquire property to make it, you know, to make it, you know, to create outflow or something like that on data shores. To potentially, but that's very challenging. It's like the stakeholder committee said, even in less vulnerable areas, it's a little bit of an to
And then was there any interest in UT at all, like seeing improvements? Have you talked to them about some of the stuff that's in the study here?
that would be great. We have not talked about this part of this.
okay, down the line. Anyone else? Anybody online?
Anyone online? I see no one online.
Okay, we get one round this time around. Thank you very much. And you will be back next month, so
That's all.
look forward to seeing you. Okay, who is coming up next here? Oh, we're back to the tip. All right. Elizabeth Watkins. Okay, all right.
Hey, get away from the tip.
Here they are. I will keep this brief as this is one of 3 points in our journey together to talk about the tip. So I'm just gonna, again, hit the highlights because what I really want to get out of this is to get your questions, your feedback on things that I can prepare for you at our workshop in 2 weeks. So what is the tip? It's a list of projects that are expected to be delivered in the next 5 years, whether it's doing preliminary engineering, right-of-way design, these are things that are funded. The tip represents about 179 projects totaling $2.5 billion within Hillsborough County over the 5-year period. The TLDR for this is the majority of the projects are maintaining the existing system, whether it's resurfacing, bus replacements, bridge replacements, while the other categories are fewer. When you break down the tip by the dollar amount, it's no surprise that the majority of the dollars of that 2.5 billion is going to major projects. There are fewer of them, but they're much more costly. West Shore Interchange, that's a $500 million project. I-4 expansion, that's another $500 million project. But if you break it down by those TPO funds, you know, we were really laser focused on that for the priority list. That's about $90 million over the 5 years, and the majority of those are going to like safety projects, good repair, those sorts of things. All right, I am not going to spend a lot of time on these because I would love your direction on what you're interested in. Some of the major projects that are planning to advance over the next 5 years, West Shore Interchange, the Turnpike widening of Suncoast Parkway in the northern part of the county, and that I-4 Express Lanes project, which is tentative, which is planned for construction in 2028. Something else you may be interested in is there are 6 proposed projects to support the potential Ray Stadium. As you can imagine, these things are moving very quickly and a lot of decisions need to be made. But there are 6 projects that are proposed, totaling about $23 million to support that development if it goes through. I've also broken out some projects by what I thought you might be interested in, like what's going to construction. I won't spend time on this because again, I really want your feedback on, do we want to talk about projects in construction? Do we want to talk about it for project type? Thousands later. So again, we're going to have a meeting that's optional on May 20th to dive deep into specific projects if you want to do that. If you want to talk about process or programmatic issues, whatever your needs are, it's my goal to meet those. And we'll have another discussion at the June 3rd meeting where you'll be asked to make a recommendation to the TPO board.
Okay, all right. Left side, Question, comment, Jamie?
I'm very interested in all of the raise projects. Thank you.
My kind of question. All right, anything else here on the left? Nope. By the way, before I forget, for the record, Andrew Marchetti walked in at about 10 or 15 minutes into the meeting. I don't think we actually announced that. Yeah, okay, I just want to make sure he's on the record as having been, right? I apologize for not having called that out earlier. All right, left side, we're good. Right side, Chris Vella.
What is the absolute latest that I can recommend a format change in the TIP document? Because you have 5x4 projects that are intersecting with the urban expansion area planning study. And a lot of people don't want that project or that study to really move forward. So I think it'd be important that the commissioners would be able to say, oh, these 5 projects relate to a study that we have in the planning commission. Why are we approving roads before the actual plan is approved by the county residents? So is there any way, like, is it even feasible for me to even pursue that with you or work with you on a format, like, just to make a little note in the actual table, and maybe print it out or PDF it to say that these relate to, these go through the area study by the planning commission?
We'll staff get together and we'll have an answer for you on what we can do in the workshop. The one thing I'm thinking of is I think there's some really behind the scenes work that they do with the formatting, but I'm not an expert, so we'll see and we'll have an update at the workshop on what we can do.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else here to the right? Nope, nope. Online?
Anyone? No one online.
Okay, so Elizabeth, I have a couple of quick questions. My favorite topic, right? Hillsborough to Beers. I don't understand why that project is in the tip, but it's there. And we'll talk about that during the workshop, I'm sure. But what I am curious about is the well. All right, never mind. We're short on time. We'll get into it during the workshop. I'll let that lie. Is there anything else here?
If I could just add to all the committee members, if you do think of anything, you can always reach out to me and we'll add that to what we have prepared for 20.
Actually, there is something that the TPO brains maybe could address. The singular reason, or at least the principal reason that was given by Josh Wastel for supporting the capacity project amendment to the language for this project, the widening from Hillsborough to Beers, was something that came up here in a comment by one of our colleagues, that we need the extra capacity because people need to be able to escape when a hurricane is coming through. All right. I am aware of absolutely no emergency management doctrine that supports the concept that capacity projects on highways are necessary in order to get people out of an emergency area because of a hurricane. The doctrine I am aware of is you run from water and you hide from wind. You can run from water simply by going to a higher area. You can hide from wind by going to a stronger structure. You don't have to go to Atlanta, Georgia on I-275 and I-75 in order to avoid a hurricane. It's a bogus argument, but it keeps coming back, and it's been coming back for 5, 6, 7 years. I would love somebody from the TPO staff to actually push back, or at least offer some commentary from the learned treatises that are out there, or bring your own emergency management personnel in to suggest whether or not that is in fact a requirement or even suggested by emergency management, right? That'd be a good thing to workshop.
Rick,
Dustin?
can I add on to that? Because
Yeah.
I like what you said. And the reason why I brought that up is because one of the reasons why TAEA has said they want to expand Selma Expressway all the way down to Big Bend Road was because we need to get people evacuated out of hurricanes. And I'm sitting there thinking, you're going north and south. You're not going east and west. You're going right along the coast, which doesn't make any sense. So yes, I am 100% on board with you with somebody explaining the reasoning for getting people out of here and using that as capacity expansion.
I appreciate that. All right. Okay, that's it. I just wanted to make sure that marker was in the ground. Okay, anything else here in the room? No, thank you. Right, we're at the 8 o'clock hour. We're not quite done, but again, if you need to leave, I understand. Where are we? Standing member request. See, what's left is pretty quick, so.
It's me, so if it's okay, I'll just walk you all through this. Yesterday, there was a special meeting of the Hillsborough TPO board to talk about the merger, get an update. We have changed some things with the presentation to you. I will say these are conversations continue to happen. Enforcement is a longer conversation than just one, so please stay tuned and I'm happy to give you a longer update later. Staff has initiated phase 2 of the project, which gets into the details like bylaws, proposed staffing, costs, things like that to help make an informed decision. So I'd be happy to provide more when there's more time. And we do update the website continuously. We'll also present to team meetings and keep you posted at future meetings on that. If I may continue through, your next meeting is June 3rd. As mentioned, you'll have the tip, but you will have a couple other items at that meeting. We'll do our best to be respectful of your time. And then we do have that workshop on the 20th. Both for the meeting on June 3rd and the workshop on the 20th. If you think of anything, whether it's a billion tip or anything else, you can always reach out to me and I'm happy to work with you on response and get that for our staff to be teed up to answer those questions.
That's it. Okay, well, I've got a gavel here that's just itching to be dropped. So anybody have anything else for the good of the order? No? We're adjourned.
Thank you, Rick.
8:02. 8:03. Whatever.
Thank you so much.
For parking.
Always fun.
Need it.
They just say, get out of here.
Neighborhoods, yeah, right.